Hi everyone, thanks for checking out the Bub Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG-10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to the October 6th edition of the Bub Report. I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bub. If you're joining us on Facebook, please do us a favor by sharing this week's live stream. And for those of you over on YouTube, do us a favor by liking and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Of course, the Bub Report is repeated on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG-10 television, as well as on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. on GBN television in Grenada. Your engagement with our various social media platforms, as well as on terrestrial television, causes us to grow and reach a wider audience and encourages us to bring you the quality content that we are so happy and proud to do so every week. And now for this week's editorial. The heart-wrenching and tragic story involving selfless carpenter Damien Clouden not only shines a spotlight on a problematic standard of care protocol in cases of extreme and delicate emergencies, such as this one, but it also highlights a blind spot that so many Grenadian and Caribbean diasporans neglect to consider when returning to their home countries for short or long-term stays. Notions of home, of course, conjures up feelings of belonging and happiness, but the reality is that home is also fraught with poor healthcare infrastructure. The poor healthcare infrastructure is very evident in Grenada, and whether you are a frequent or infrequent visitor to the island, it must become the best practice to purchase medical travel insurance. Emergency medical evacuation insurance is a type of insurance that helps pay for the expense to transport you from a remote area or a remote area with inadequate medical facilities to a better equipped medical center, usually by airlift or ambulance. Now, medical evacuation travel insurance is generally included in a comprehensive travel insurance plan. Sometimes, emergency medical evacuation insurance, called medical evacuation and repatriation insurance. The maximum coverage amount will vary by plan, so be sure to shop around for a high coverage amount if this is important to you, to ensure that you're getting the best quality of care under those circumstances. Now, the best travel insurance plans usually provide up to $1 million per person for medical evacuation. That might seem a bit high, but evacuation costs can add up quickly, especially in respect of things like air ambulances. The cost of emergency medical transportation can run into the tens of thousands of dollars or more, especially if you are in, shall we say, a remote destination, according to Daniel Durazo, who is a spokesperson with Allianz Global Assistance, which is one of those international insurance companies. Exactly what you'll pay for emergency evacuation would depend on your medical condition, the care required, and your location. Durazo says emergency medical transportation to the United States from the following countries can cost the following. So from the Caribbean and Mexico, that can be range anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000. South America, $40,000 to $75,000, and parts of Europe, $65,000 to $90,000, and Asia, Australia, and the Middle East, upwards of $225,000. Now, medical evacuation travel insurance can help pay for your evacuation and ground ambulance costs, medical escorts, the cost for family or friends to fly to your bedside, and to transport your children back home if there is no one to take care of you, among other things. So the next time you pack your warm weather gear, please be sure to also pack your travel insurance. It can certainly make the difference between life and death. I kid you not. And of course, we here at the Bub Report, we extend best wishes to the family of Mr. Clouden and to Mr. Clouden himself. We do understand that they reached the minimum threshold, fundraising threshold, and cost threshold that is needed to transport Mr. Clouden, who was engaging really in selfless work by supporting his devastated relatives over there in Carriacou before encountering that very, very, very tragic and severe accident that he encountered on the sister island. So we wish him all the very best as hopefully he journeys to the United States for emergency care that he so desperately needs at this time. Viewers and listeners, this is the Bub Report. Please stay with us and we will be back for the first segment of the program. And again, if you're just joining us, please remember to like and share this week's live stream.
We seek the truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, you have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style. And so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues?
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
This is a very interesting question.
The Bub Reports with Dr. Kellan Bub. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
Viewers and listeners, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bub Report. Now, for our first segment, we sit with some of the players behind the 6th annual 1261 Grenada Film Festival. The 4-day event will showcase the best local and global storytelling through film. The festival brings together filmmakers, industry professionals, and cinema enthusiasts to celebrate cinema, culture, and community, and to experience the power of storytelling on the big screen. With a focus on highlighting diverse and underrepresented voices, the festival promises to deliver an unforgettable experience that honors Grenada's vibrant artistic community and fosters meaningful connections between filmmakers and audiences alike. Now, over the last year, founder of the Grenada Film Festival, Mashida Phillip, participated in the prestigious Dean Tull Forum, promoting international productions among Africa, the Caribbean, and Europe. Currently, she is in post-production on her feature documentary, Gordon de Lameth, which explores the life of a Grenadian artist and activist. Beyond filmmaking, Mashida is instrumental in developing cinema infrastructure in the Caribbean, fostering new talent and expanding on the reach of Caribbean cinema to international markets while bridging connections with the African diaspora. Phillip is joined today by Barbadian American Tiffany Yard, who is a screenwriter and a director of competitions and partnerships at Roadmap Writers. And she's also joined by British Grenadian film director Kibwe Tavares. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but he will correct me if I did not. And who has made his feature directional debut with The Kitchen, co-directed with Daniel Kaluuya. His background in architecture shapes his uniquely immersive and visually captivating style, bringing fresh perspectives to storytelling. I will begin this segment with Mashida. Mashida, welcome to this week's edition of the Bub Report.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's good to have you back. I can't believe it has been an entire year already.
I can't believe it either. The time is going by really quickly.
Really, really quickly. So let us talk about this year's festival. Of course, this is the 6th annual. It's growing strong. I
Yes.
had an opportunity to look at the offerings, and it's certainly much bigger than what I saw last year. So that really is testament to me to the work that you have been doing, laboring in the vineyard to ensure that we have that kind of representation and that kind of exposure in Grenada.
Yes, my team and I have been working endlessly and tirelessly in putting forth all of the different curations and programs that we're offering up to Grenada. And it is such an honor to be here 6 years later from the time we started till now, to be able to, especially now where there is so much interest and so much new energy around the creative sector. So it's a really good time to see the hard work that we have been doing materialize.
Mm-hmm. Now, in the last 2 years, we have heard a lot about the creative economy. And can you talk about how you're seeing this whole idea of the creative economy in the context of this film festival achieving fruit? Or
Well,
bearing fruit, not achieving fruit,
bearing fruit.
Yeah.
In the context of such, we have been receiving support from different entities, from the government in different capacities. The government has implemented certain infrastructures that creatives like myself and other creative and businesses can take advantage of. So that is a good thing. There is a lot of incentives that is aligned there, so it is up to us to take advantage. But in addition to having a lot of the attention coming from there and some infrastructures being implemented and put in place, you're starting to see now a lot of local stakeholders also getting a renewed interest, I should say, in the way in which they are looking onto the creative sector as a viable business versus that of a hobby. So when coming to the film festival per se, with a combination of everything and having both, even though it's a local festival, we have a huge international reach. So what we have been seeing an uptick in a lot of Grenadians within the diaspora who is researching and is getting excited to know that there is something, a platform of such magnitude in Grenada that they can now come back home contributing very innovative, creative ways to kind of bridge what we are doing locally with the diaspora and vice versa.
And I want you to stick a pin there. And of course, we'll get back into having a conversation specifically about this year's offerings. But I want to bring in both Tiffany and Kibwe. Tiffany,
Yes.
you are Bajan American.
I am proud to be.
Yes, a proud Shafet girl.
Yes. I gotta get the royalties. Yes.
Yeah, right. as well as Kibwe. Tiffany, how did you manage to know about the 1261 Film Festival, and what are you going to be bringing to the table for this year's event?
So I was blessed to be introduced via Essence Film Festival. So Roadmap did a master's workshop there, and the assistant director there introduced us. and we had a great meeting. Shida is really good at roping you into doing more things, but I really believe in the mission of the festival. So we started to discuss how we could do an initiative because as a Caribbean American, I've always been trying to find ways to champion the Caribbean voice. I find that there's a monolithic experience here. What they think the Black experience in America is, it doesn't really highlight the Caribbean or even the African diaspora. So I really wanted to come up with an initiative for that. And Rashida was on the same page as me. And so we decided to do a folklore initiative that'll be launching with, collaborating with Bahamas and Barbados to launch in October. And then at the festival itself, well, I won't be able to be physically at the festival, unfortunately, but I'll be able to be there the week before, only because I'm double booked, not because I don't want to go, because I really want to go. But I will be doing a virtual teaching of the beat sheet, like, setting the framework that you need to really have successful feature. So we'll be starting off with the virtual the week before, and then I'll be physically in Grenada the week before the festival to do a beat sheet breakdown. So by the end, participants will have a strong beat sheet that they can go off into the creative universe space and create their feature.
So what I hear you saying here is that you do a lot of background work. Shall we say, some may not call that the glamorous part of the experience. But your bio speaks to the work you do in nurturing future filmmakers and fostering those global partnerships with people of color. Now, how challenging is that work, and what results have you managed to rack up in that space?
So Roadmap Writers itself is an educational platform. So there's a whole series that prepares writers to be successful in the industry. We've had a successful ability to have over 400, as you know, it's hard to get representation. So over 400 writers have been able to gain representation through Roadmap Writers and the educational service we provide, as well as the connection that our CEO, Joey Tuccio, is able to vet and maintain. So we've been able to do that. Me personally, my personal goal, my part in the organization is to make sure that in addition to all the competition work that I do, is to really nurture the writers of color. So I will meet with them personally if they need. I will read some of their scripts. We also have a free diversity initiative where they can enter and we can see if their work is ready and get them through the career writer program so that they're able to then be ready to be vetted and be in front of reps. So there's a lot of work that goes into the behind into building up. It's not easy, especially in the market right now, to get your work seen. So we're still fighting a good fight here.
Kibwe, welcome to the Bub Report, sir.
No,
so talk to us about your Grenadian roots. I'm sure they run very deep.
They do run very deep. So, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. So my grandparents are from Grenada, and my mum was born in Grenada too, and then she moved to UK where I was born. And I found out about the festival through the kind of Grenadian community, really. My brother, a friend of my brother's, sort of reached out and introduced me to Mashida, then we had the chat. And then so I'm excited to come home, really. So yeah, it goes back. I'm sort of like, my dad's from Jamaica and then Grenada, so I call myself mixed race, but I'm joking. So I'm excited to come home, and I guess where I sort of feel my power can be in a way is I've got links in the US, in the UK, and I understand the industry, and I'd like to kind of share that knowledge and come home and also start to kind of teach people about techniques and certain things that I've learned over the years. And I'm going to be around the festival for a good while before and then during for a little bit too. So I'll be around, and hopefully we'll do some masterclasses as well as some workshops and really get into it.
Kibwe, your bio suggested that you went from engineering, which is I consider engineers to be very logical, sort of thinking people who are into a particular way of doing and thinking. And I'm not trying to stereotype anyone, but I've never met an engineer who said, "Oh, you know what? I love reading Toni Morrison, for example, or I love reading Audre Lorde." I don't know a lot of engineers, but I'm sure they do have a wide array of interests. But you went from engineering to filmmaking. Articulate how that switch happened and
I
where
was
it happened.
It happened. I was always into, when I was young, I had a lot of, try and give a concise version. When I was young, I had a lot of access to computers, and I always just kind of make little animations on the computer. And then when it came to the degree, it was like, you know, Caribbean, strict Jamaican dad and mum, they were like, you need to do something proper. So engineering felt like a good sort of natural sort of like thing. And then the logical mind, and then over time, I sort of started to kind of like essentially switch and get much more into the creative side and use the 3D software that I was learning to build out new worlds. And then that slowly transitioned me from architecture, from civil engineering of architecture to architecture, and then eventually to filmmaking. So it was a sort of like a slow process, but it almost started from when I was a young kid. And then I was lucky to have the tools around me and the encouragement around me to kind of like try different things and take that leap.
Yeah, absolutely. And you articulated something there which is so very real in the African and Caribbean community.
Yeah.
What are the three things? And I'm going to do a pop quiz with the rest of the panel. What are the three things that parents expect us to do? There are three careers.
Lawyer,
Teacher.
Doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Engineer, yeah.
Yes.
In the context of Nigeria, but you know, in the context of Grenada, I know the lawyer was the thing. I mean, you know, back and I did apply to law school, and I did.
Me too.
Back when I completed, and then I'm like, you know what? No, I like arguing, but again, my parents couldn't afford to send me to law school. But at the same time, I was just not feeling it. And so Kibwe, I'm sure that you are essentially, what you're saying here is that you're really following that passion now. And of course, Tiffany, you brought it up earlier, and that has to do with some of the challenges that the industry is currently facing. And I want all of you to talk about this. Of course, we live in an era of, now we have a heightened inflation. We have so many economic issues happening. And I'm sure that perhaps benefactors might not be as forthcoming and giving in this period. So how are you navigating these issues? Tiffany?
Well, right now, the slogan here is survive to 25. So post-strike, studios can be a little tight with the funding at the moment, but that doesn't mean that they're not taking meetings. It just means that they may be tabling the funding until 2025 and revisiting. I mean, shows are still in full swing. They found ways to save some coins by not necessarily filming in LA, but filming. It's a great opportunity for other industries now to get it and say that, hey, this is where a place you can shoot. Here's some places you can get a tax break, things of that nature. So they are looking into it. They're still having meetings. It's just that they're not green lighting as many things, especially in the TV space at the moment.
Ms. Shida?
And I want to add to what Tiffany is saying, and that is one of the biggest push that we are promoting this year as well in Grenada and the Caribbean as well, is understanding that we are in a very vital period, right? There is so much going on internationally, and within our own region, we are still untapped to a certain extent, and we have a lot of offerings that people can now take advantage of. So a lot of the red tapes that happens in the bigger countries are not necessarily that in the Caribbean. So producers, international producers, have an opportunity now to find new spaces to create their projects without a lot of the still expensive, don't get me wrong, but the heightened expense or the restrictions that are there sometimes because of certain implementations by studios and other organizations, we can now do things a little bit faster sometimes when we are utilizing other regions. And if you notice what's happening in Grenada in the last few years as well, we're seeing a lot more international productions coming in and taking place in Grenada. So which is a really good thing for Grenadians. It's a good opportunity for people who are local, who are interested in the industry, to start now aligning themselves with different individuals like myself, like Tiffany, like Pibwe, you know, to just come and connect and say, what are the possibilities? Because we are no longer restricted to our space because the internet is here. You are connected with everyone right now, right? You have access. You just have to put yourself there.
Okay, boy.
Yeah, no, I'm following on from what Mashid is saying. For me, it is challenging, you know, like things can go in cycles, like project can start and stop and all of that sort of thing. And there is that element of survival. And I think going into something like film, you naturally like expect that it's gonna like, you know, it's gonna feast or famine at points. But I guess adversity for me like leads to great art. And I guess I'm excited, and this is what I'm really excited about the festival, the idea of coming home and seeing like what happens if you start to break those structures. What happens if you start to kind of use like look at like the power of what you have internally rather than be like, okay, well, this thing or this system's going to give me the answer, or like, and so for me, it's like now I'm sort of like, I've got a bit of time now to kind of find, you know, like a new way of working potentially, and like, and also like come home to a certain degree. So, but it is sort of challenging. And I think sometimes putting all your faith in one system and being like, that is the pinnacle, and putting that above everything else isn't necessarily always the answer.
Yeah.
And that's one of,
Yes,
sorry,
Michelle,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, that's one of the things that we are approaching this year. So we are starting off the festival actually with a business symposium, and we're looking at the business side of the production and how stakeholders can benefit from it, the impact, right, from tourism all the way to the economic impact. And part of the panelists that would be there, we have Carrie, who is a regional producer, who has been in Grenada and has been one of the segment producers for Below Deck. And she will be now talking about what it looked like having the opportunity to work on such an international production in Grenada and showing stakeholders there what are the spends, what are the possibilities. So we're kicking it off that way. I do agree, as someone who is sitting in both spaces from a filmmaker standpoint, looking for funding to finish my own projects, to someone who has been developing a platform to share with others as well. It is financially, it is really, really tasking for us, but we have to become very creative and go back. Filmmaking is a collaborative business. And many times we have to go back to the whole bartering system. How can we all benefit from that? You have someone who is skilled as a screenwriter. How can you now lend your services to what we are doing? An editor, a producer, a director. It's a collaborative thing to get your projects out. Because I don't have that type of money. You know, Kidway does work in the I would like to say the robotics sci-fi realm, and his work is really, really great. You know, I saw his work and I did not even know that he co-produced The Kitchen, and I am sitting there just in awe for what he does, and I know what he does is really, really expensive because it's a unique genre that he is working out of. He can speak about it. Oh, you have the program up. Yes, so as you can tell, it's very extensive.
Yes, Kibwe, looking at your bio, I saw that, and one of the things that I noticed is that you're borrowing a lot of that engineering influence into that space. So let us talk about that whole robotics work and how that is incorporated into your filmmaking.
Yeah, so it really comes from I guess my growing up. Like my dad's a scientist, and so we always had computers around. So we all got trained, and we always, like me and my brothers, I got two brothers, Gaika and Zena, and we always spoke about the future. And in architecture and engineering, you're always looking at things that don't exist yet. So you tend to kind of look into what doesn't exist. And really also came from like my background as an engineer architect. Like often like I tried to build on what I've done before. So like the shift into filmmaking wasn't like an erasure of what I've done before. It was more like, how can I build on what, and then use actually that to kind of start to define the narratives I want to tell, start to kind of build the small worlds I want to sort of live in and tell stories in, and build on top of what you got, as opposed to kind of being like, I studied architecture, forget about that, let me just move into something else. It's more like an incremental building of stuff, of skills and techniques and interests.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, that on the back end, the business side, the writing side, all of those elements are so critical to the success of the industry. And even knowing how to secure funding for a project, you know, even understanding local regulations and all of those things. Of course, Grenada has the Office of Creative Affairs now. I don't know if that exists in other countries, but what does that look like for up and coming Caribbean filmmakers? Yes, all of those issues we have to consider. But Mashida, one of the things that I have to say that I really appreciate in respect of what you do, not only in respect of your networking and being able to curate this wonderful talent that you bring to Grenada every year, but also in relation to representation in film.
Yes.
That's one of the things I'm very, very passionate about. And it's good to see now that we're having much, the first and foremost, that we're saying that we do not need to rely on Hollywood for representation, that we can create our own representation. Yeah. And that is so critical. So I want us to talk about the representational aspect of film and the impact of that representation. Of course, Tiffany, I'm sure that in your writings, you're probably incorporating cultural elements there from Barbados and, of course, living in a melting pot such as New York. So let us talk about that representation.
Yeah, so representation, I find that people are limited when they say representation to the color of your skin. And it's so much more than that because, like, in a Caribbean household, at least mine was strict, right? But then when I started to venture out, I didn't really realize I was Black until I got to boarding school. Because in boarding school, they had their own stereotype of what it meant to be Black, especially when they found out I was from the projects. It was very odd, right? Because I lived in the projects, and I was of the projects. It just happened to be my economical circumstance at the time. So I found that that's when I started to explore what does it mean to be Black, what does it mean to be Caribbean and Black, and what does it mean to be living in America. And also, you know, when I go back home, different expectations, even from greeting. You know, when you go home, if you go into a hair shop, you know, you're expected to say good morning, good evening, or whatever. If you don't, it's rude. Whereas here, in New York, you're expected to mind your business, you know? So it's just it sounds crazy, but that's part of it. That's part of it. It's part of the cultural expectations. And so when I think of representation, I think of more than skin deep. When I'm looking at stories, when I'm writing a story, I'm looking at how am I incorporating the music? How am I incorporating the food? What are the family dynamics? And what I was blessed was that my first creative screenwriting credit was Dress for Success. Actually had a Trinidadian lead, who she's amazing, but she was playing a Bajan. And kind of it was at the time also, it was timely because at the time we were talking about the strike was about to start. And so this lawyer who is of Asian descent and who's navigating that space has to fight for the underdog and for the immigrants that are coming in. And so I was blessed to be able to put some of my roots in there. And everything I write, it doesn't matter whether it's a thriller or a drama, whatever it is, it always has a Caribbean. I always need the Caribbean in there because it's important. And I think it's important that part of your legacy as a creative incorporates more than just the skin deep, more than just the economics, but really be bold and audacious enough to showcase your culture. I think a lot of people tend to shy away from that because they want to fit in, but build your brand, build your voice. And if that's part of it, have the audacity to showcase it is what I say.
Ms. Haida?
Yeah, I want to build on that. I mean, that was part of the impetus of me starting the festival because I remember when I was in grad school and I'd say who we were, and I was going through the exercise and I'm like, I'm an American filmmaker, and the professor is like, but you have an accent, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Grenada. And he's like, well, why are you going to just try to be like everyone else? Why not forge your own unique path? And, you know, so from since then till now, I first say I am a Grenadian American filmmaker if I want to put the American side in it, right? But a Grenadian filmmaker first and foremost, because the whole core, the whole essence of who I am from young till now has been that of the training and everything that I've learned in Grenada.
Mhm.
So when to add to what Tiffany is saying, that was huge for me in how I show up in spaces. And
Mhm.
how I show up in spaces, I show up in spaces, yes, as a Black woman internationally, but I'm also a Caribbean Black woman. So that
Yeah.
gives me a different stature. So when
Mhm.
I am curating or when we are curating the festival, it is important for us to look at all of the different cultures, all of the different races that is existing in the Caribbean. The Caribbean, like America, is a melting pot as well. We have all different ethnicities that is existing there. In Grenada alone, there are tons of different people, right?
Mhm.
So we are always looking for different films that is representing different experiences.
Yeah.
So when you are sitting there, you can be someone who grew up in St. Patrick's, but what does that child or that person who is from the country, how is their lives different from that of someone from St. George's?
Mhm.
And so when we are looking at it, we try to find things from the person who grew up in a fishing town. They can relate to that film. The
Yeah.
person who is a Muslim. This year we have Potluck Ladies. That film is about a communal of Indian Muslim women in Canada and how their experiences are. So we are bringing that film to Grenada as well, that series to Grenada. Since we started the program, since we started the festival in 2019, we always had an LGBTQ program that we showcase every year because
Mhm.
we feel that it's important to have conversations about inclusion and diversity because it's something that is existing within our community as well. So you're having things that is engaging and furthering on conversations, how people are, how families are varying in different experiences.
Mhm.
So we are very intentional as far as the things we program, and we want all our little young kids from Grenada to be able to be proud to say, I can relate to this. One of the things you do not see, and that's why I got into the business as well, is I was tired of the whitewashing. I couldn't relate to a lot of the films, a lot of the things that I was seeing. I love
Mhm.
Hollywood films, right? I love Lifetime. I love these things, but that was not representative of who I am, my
Mhm.
family experiences, my friends' experiences, and that is something that we pride ourselves on.
Mhm. Yeah, Kibo, I want to bring you back here because, of course, the Black British experience, and speaking of representation, is a unique experience. Is
Mhm.
unique to that immigrant story there, and I remember having watched that Small Acts series. I'm not sure if anyone did
Yeah.
not see the Small Acts series. Please go watch it.
Mhm.
It was such a joy to watch, right? To see that Caribbean, that West Indian experience in England come alive, and it was so
Mhm.
representative of who we are as a people. And I was saying to myself that if a white director was responsible for directing this, we might not have been able to see a lot of those cultural nuances play
No.
out at all. Like Tiffany just mentioned here accents, and sometimes I see in some of those Hollywood films they have people playing Jamaicans, and I'm like, that's not even a Jamaican accent, you know. And it's so culturally anachronistic, right, to who we are.
It's
So,
different.
Kibo,
Yeah.
yeah. So, what does the work that you're doing and other Black British filmmakers doing to really raise the bar in respect of representation over there?
So I think that, like, say for example, Small X is a good example because that's Steve McQueen, who's Canadian
Yes.
descent as well.
Yeah.
And for me, and then he like like his approach, and like I know him a bit, and then we'll try to learn from it. It's really about sort of like instead of a sort of like stereotyping anything and being like this is Jamaican sound like this. How can you treat people like they're fully fledged, the characters like they're fully fledged people, so they have a specific background. They talk a specific
Mhm.
way, and the specific things that happen to them. And you try and make sure that you integrate that into your script. And the way I do that, my work, and it's similar to, I guess, what I was sort of saying technically. I also try to use all my experience. Like I born in England, my parents are from Jamaica and Grenada, and now I live in the States. And I always try to kind of bring in that sort of diversity of like my life into how I approach things. The kitchen was important. We were trying to show all different facets of London, whether it's black, white, all different
Mhm.
immigrants in the kitchen. And we're trying to kind of show what the essence of London is. And it was really built out of childhood experience of actually having a very sort of like mixed group of close friends who were sort of immigrants from different places, and we wanted to make sure that we showed that and we showed them. And then as well as behind the camera, our crew was really diverse as well. All of our like whether it's costume, um, HIDs, and there were some training exercises that we done in the build up to the kitchen that some of the people that were working in the workshops that we done eventually kind of like end up doing jobs on the film. So like for me, it's like a holistic thing of like the content of what you're doing, as well as how you sort of structure the film when you're actually making it.
Absolutely. And Tiffany, would this be your first visit to Grenada?
Yes, I'm excited. It'll be my first time ever going there, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and you have a bunch of workshops lined up. Actually, the film kicks off with your workshop on the 17th October with the screenwriting workshop. Actually, you have two sessions
Yeah.
around crafting a screenplay. So I'm sure folks will be looking forward to that. And there's several sessions there. But Mashida, for this one, let us talk about the actual lineup of this year's films that you have on tap.
Okay. But we start off the festival, as I mentioned before, with these coming the week before, and we have some other things that will be implemented before, because there's so much to happen in 4 days. We really are grateful that we can split it up. So this year, like I mentioned, we are starting it off with the Business Symposium, the Creative Immersive Series, and it's going to be a half-day symposium, looking at all different aspects of the business side of the industry. So we're inviting folks to come out, and then the evening, that's on the 24th of October, and then the evening we are going to have our gala, but this time it's going to be the first masquerade gala that we are having. And we're excited about that because it's just an opportunity for people to just come and represent themselves in their avant-garde style and just celebrate all of the excellence that we are doing as creatives. It's also a fundraising drive, right? Um, a portion of the a portion of the funds collected is going to go towards starting out a endowment for our we're trying to do a residency program that are facilitating training for women directors. So part of the monies that is raised is going to go towards that. And then following the next day, which is the 25th of October, we are going to have a series of different activities. We are going to do some cultural practices where we are doing oil and conversations, try to do it differently than in just closed up environments. We're in the island, so we take advantage of that. We are fostering relationships with different venues in Grenada. So we are doing the oil and talks, then followed by a short film series that are looking at the sustainable food security and sustainability, which is a huge thing right now in the Caribbean and beyond, right? Then we have a lot of different programs. We have Haiti. Um, the focus is on the art in Haiti, and then going into the later part of the evening, several of the films will be showcased at the Movie Palace, who is our venue partner for this year to showcase. I must say that. So the majority of our films will be screened at Movie Palace, who is phenomenal in housing and accommodating us this year. From that, that's the evening. We have our LGBT program that will be screened there. That's it right there. Um, yes, self-discovery and expressions. This year in particular, this one of the film will be paying homage to John T, who, as we all know, has lost his life. and it's called Caribbean Queen, I believe is the name of that particular film. So we'll be having a conversation around, we're having a panel discussion as well, Q&As. Some of the filmmakers will be there as well. So we're encouraging people to come out and just be part of it. Followed by that, on Saturday, we are having again a series of different conversations, workshops, chats. There are tons of, there's about 15, I believe, producers and filmmakers that is coming in this year into Grenada. All these films that you're seeing on the schedule are all premiering in Grenada for the first time. Some of it is world premiere. So that's just telling you to the depth of how the impact, right, and the reach, Kelon, on what is being offered right now. So it's very special, right, to be able to bring these things to Grenada. We have something for everyone. We have a lot of art films. We have a lot of biopic films. We have drama. We have student films that is there. And then this year, this is the potluck series that I mentioned before. Going to Mars is a phenomenal piece featuring Nikki. This is an American-based documentary for anyone who believes in Pan-Africanism, who believes in poetry, spoken words. I mean, this is just a phenomenal film that they should come out and see. And then we are going to be closing off this year's film with Banky Banks documentary. And for those of you who don't know who Banky Banks is, he is, I like to say, because I've just come to learn about him as well, he has legendary status like the Bob Marleys and stuff because he has been so instrumental in shaping a lot of the musical sounds that is coming out of the Caribbean. And just, he has run the Moonshine festival in Anguilla for the last 30 something years. So he also is going to be in Grenada, and we are cooking up something very special. We are finalizing some things, but we are going to be doing a concert and the final screening at La Fleur Bleu that evening. So persons can now go back on our website to keep updated, because the website now is just, the program is very dynamic, and we are finalizing a few things. We have, I forgot to say, Open Season by Nick is also going to be officially premiering in Grenada. It's not listed. We are trying to decide if it's going to be the opening film this year or what. We have a few of the other films here, so it's still in the toss-up to see which one is going to be that. But yeah, and that's dealing with the leatherback turtles in Grenada. So again, for everyone who is interested, this is our 6th year. We put a lot of effort in being in making sure that we curate something for everyone. If you don't, if you have questions, just reach out to us, and we will be more accommodative to answer your questions. But in order for you to know that these things is here, we invite you to come to Movie Palace. Most of the screenings start at 4:30 every day, and I think 3 or 4 screenings. Different movies will be offering. So yeah, we have over 30. We have over 30 titles that will be featured in 4 days.
And those are really, really, really good titles.
Oh
Amazing
yeah,
titles, I have to say. I
yes.
happen to know Nick personally. We attended high school together, and I was able to see I had him on the program, and he did mention that he submitted an entry. So it's good to know that his entry, that is that particular film. So it's good
Yes,
to know that
yes,
he will be listed there. And
yes.
certainly that is a very impressive lineup, if I may say so myself.
Thank you.
Um,
And
uh,
we're really trying. We're really trying to provide a Now we're trying. We are providing a platform for Grenadian filmmakers, and we want people to understand this. The festival is a Grenadian festival. It is based in Grenada. Our mission is to be able to promote more localized content, not just locally, but also helping to reach the international market. Tiffany just mentioned to you that we got connected through the Essence Film Festival.
yeah.
Our festival is linked throughout the world. So whether not you submit something to us, we can also help refer you over to other spaces. But just as how the other countries have different festivals and a lot of effort is being put into pushing local talent, we are also doing so, you know. While we are building our industry, we also have to be welcoming to have that cultural exchange by inviting other filmmakers to come to Grenada so we can learn from them, we can network, we can grow, and have further opportunities to collaborate beyond our borders and beyond our shows.
Absolutely, Ms. Shida, very, very well put together. Of course, that lineup is tempting me to take some time off
plane?
to come down to Grenada for a weekend.
You should.
I really should. There, and I'm still working on that documentary that we spoke about. You know, it's something that
Yes.
is in the back
Yes.
of
It
my
takes
mind.
time. It takes
It does
time.
take time. Yeah, it does take time. But I want to go over to Kibwe and Tiffany for some closing comments.
Sure. So what I'll just say is that representation is important. I guess we'll close on that. Representation is important, and that also breaking through the tropes. So you talk about the Jamaican accent. How they love to do that the most. I don't know why they think that's
Yeah.
but I also think sometimes they think Jamaica is the only island that exists. Beautiful, beautiful place, but they're not the only island that exists.
Correct.
So I think it's just really important. The more creatives that we're able to champion, the more of our people and our people is all of the West Indies. It's not just your island, it goes beyond that. But the more of our people that we're able to champion, the more of our roots that we're able to connect back to Africa and showcase some more of those stories, whether it's like, talking about like how we're doing the folklore initiative, that I love that because now we're talking about the different stories from the different islands and what does that look like and being inspired by those stories. But that's how we live. That's how our people have always lived, is through the oral, right? So if you go back in our history. So I think that we need to really dig down deep and find out what we want our legacy to be and just work on breaking through those tropes and bringing those stories, through and just having the audacity to be authentically us.
Absolutely. Kibwe?
Yeah, following what you're saying. For me, it's like, I think this idea of like outside of something, I think humans have the nature to kind of be like, grass is greener or something else is better. And I think what really excites me about the festival is this idea of coming home, and also this idea of like seeing the value of the power of what's in Grenada and the power of what's in us. Really. So I don't know. So I'm excited for it, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm excited to kind of start to have amazing conversations and learn, and just be home.
How do you make regular visits to Grenada, or would this be a first visit in a long time that you're doing?
I've been quite regularly the last couple of years. Sadly, my granddad passed last year, and then so I was there last Christmas, and then for the funeral, spring summer in last year. So I've been all my life. I've come quite regularly. So it's somewhere that I'm familiar with.
Who is your favorite Grenadian artist, and what is your favorite Grenadian dish? let me test your Grenadian-ness.
I love breadfruit. My favorite Grenadian artist. He's not an artist, but he is an artist. Karani James.
Karani James. Okay. Well, we'll work on that. We'll work on that. We'll work on that. Okay, Ms. Shida, over to you for some closing comments.
I agree with what Tiffany and Kiwe said, but for me, it's just a matter of I am very grateful for my team for being here and sticking it through with us for the last 6 years. And I know things are changing. I feel it just to have the opportunity to be able to be sitting here right now with such diverse panel of people who are coming back to give, to do some things extraordinary in Grenada. That's also telling. So for me, it's just, I'm excited to see the reception that we are getting this year. I'm welcoming everyone. It is a open forum for everyone. So it's you coming out and participating. If you are creative, come out. this is one of the few spaces that you can get to interact with all of those international and regional filmmakers without any big what's the word I'm looking for, Tiffany? Like, like division or separation or pressure, right? Because when you go to other
Or without
festivals,
pretense, I think.
but thank you.
Yeah.
People
They're
come to
fake.
Grenada and it's just open and you can
Authentic.
literally pick people. Yes, a very authentic experience, right? And you have that human aspect to it that makes it so special and so unique. So, I do agree on taking pride in what you have locally and understanding that the grass is not always greener on the other side. Sometimes what we have here is the greenest pastures ever. It takes all of us to continue to nurture it. So if people want to be on board, the festival site is 1261filmfestival.com. Social media, we're updating continuously. Tell a friend to come out and support. And to all of my panelists, to all my entire team, volunteers, I just want to say thank you. The stakeholders, the sponsors, Movie Palace, thank you so much for the generosity. And I'm looking forward to a beautiful festival this year.
Speaking of sponsors, what about support from state partners, whether it's the Grenada Tourism Authority or the government, the creative office, and what's that looking like this year?
Well, this year, what we have done due to the hurricane and due to everything that was there, as a collective team, we also were uncertain if this would have been possible to have the festival this year. So we did not really seek much sponsorship per se.
Okay.
But the GTA is on board. They will be part of the opening symposium talking about the economical benefits towards tourism and all of that. The Office of Creative Affairs is doing what they need to do in helping us to disseminate the marketing aspect for the festival. Other stakeholders are coming on board slowly, but again, very strained because of the hurricane. So for us, we are utilizing our gala night as our fundraising night to hopefully we can get the support from Corporate Grenada and others to come out and help us.
Absolutely. Mishida, Tiffany, and Kibwe, thank you for appearing on this week's edition of the Bub Report.
Thank you for having us.
Listeners, this is the Bub Report. We just finished with the first segment. And please stay with us for the second segment. We'll be having a conversation around Dr. Mitchell's Riot Act at the New National Party's General Council. Please stand by for that.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
I believe one of the reasons that Peter David is on the platform here today is because of something I know happened very early. I remember after the election in 2008, the energies of the government were all spent on Keith Mitchell. I never forget that. They have to jail Keith Mitchell, they have to do more. So I say, wait a minute, jail Keith Mitchell, we still have a problem. So I remember going to Parliament one day, and Peter will remember this. And I said to them after about 3 or 4 months, I said, you know, during the election days you call me Jonah, Peter used to call me Jonah. So Jonah get up in Parliament, and Jonah said to the Prime Minister and his team on the other side, all spending all your time trying to jail Keith Mitchell. You spend all your time vilifying. Remember, you're voted there to improve the lives of the people. But I can tell you this, you will not succeed. But more than that, within a year and a half, when the people cannot see an improvement in their lives, they will come next to the wheel. Jonah, wake up. You will fail. I had the whole Parliament laughing. But it was a serious statement. And I'm telling you what, I think Peter understood this. And because he was a voice for saying, let us get on with the work of the government. Let us build the lives of the people. Forget Keith Mitchell. He's now in opposition. We succeed in getting rid of him politically in government. Our task now is to build the country. For that, I believe he enjoyed the wrath of the Prime Minister. In my view, was very simple-minded and one-dimensional, together with his strict chief supporter, and then the Minister of Finance, whose only role in government seemed to be just to attack and vilify people, not to do benefits and bring benefits to the people of the country. I am telling you, therefore, the NNP is the beneficiary of Peter's work, experience, and ability because of the type of politics that was practiced within the National Democratic Congress. So we welcome Peter on board. For one thing, sisters and brothers, I've said over and over, I am not in this Peter just joined NNP, or Peter joined Keith Mitchell. This is not the issue. As far as I'm concerned, Peter decided to join the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and PTR.
And viewers and listeners, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bub Report. We thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining us, please remember to like and share this week's live stream. If you're following this program on YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Of course, you can catch a repeat episode of this week's edition of the Bub Report on WPG 10 television at 8 p.m. this evening, as well as on GBN television as a repeat broadcast at 5 p.m. this coming Wednesday. Now, for the second segment of the program, we sit with a panel of politicos to debrief Dr. Mitchell's Riot Act speech at the New National Party's recently held General Council meeting in St. George's. Dr. Mitchell's line of march to the delegates largely focused on critiquing the conduct of the current administration's management of state business, as well as a charge for the NNP to be ready to, quote, rescue Grenada, unquote, on the account of what the NNP sees are the socioeconomic challenges facing the state that the NDC has failed to live up to manage. But Dr. Mitchell saved the last part of a more than 40-minute address to read the Riot Act against his colleague Charles Peter David without mentioning him by name, who incidentally joined the New National Party a decade ago on the 20th of May 2014, after being expelled from the National Democratic Congress following a series of palace intrigues with the leadership of that party at the time. Now, at the time David joined the NNP, Dr. Mitchell said welcoming David into the fold was one of the most significant developments in his long political career, declaring that it will go down a long way in unifying the nation under what was then called Project Grenada. He called David a good politician who loves people and who has a big contribution to make to national development. That was back in 2014. But how times have changed. David, for his part, remains a complicated figure in Grenadian politics, while having broad crossover appeal among the base of both political parties. He is also viewed by some as a politically opportunistic grubber who may swing anywhere the wind blows in the interest of acquiring power at all costs. Shall we say, a Machiavellian approach to politics. Now, following David's multiple appearances on the Bub Report, where the issue of leadership was discussed, Dr. Mitchell's boss, that's David's boss, never responded favorably to Peter David's public declarations, which spilled out into the open in spectacular fashion last Sunday. Here to make sense of this political development are former NNP member of Parliament, Tobias Clement, as well as a member of the New National Party, Mr. Kenny Lal Singh, who served in both political parties, the NNP and the NDC, and the former Member of Parliament for St. Patrick West, and Mr. William Joseph, a long-standing veteran member of the National Democratic Congress. Gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Bub Report. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me, and let me say good day to my brothers, Brother Lal Singh and Brother Joseph, and to our listening audience. A pleasant good afternoon to you all.
Yes. Welcome, William. Your sparring partner isn't here, but we are going to tarry nonetheless.
Well, I thank you for your kind welcome and introduction. I greet my brothers on the panel. Let me just correct you. I know there's a public perception that I've been a member of the NDC for a long time.
Yes.
But as a matter of fact, I was a member of the NDC for only 1 year.
Only 1 year? I find that very hard to believe. But thanks for the correction.
I worked for the NDC, I this for the NDC, I that for the NDC, but I was never a member.
Thank you.
Officially
so
1 year.
Sir, thank you so much for that correction. And of course, we have to clear the
no problem.
Set the record straight on that issue. And of course, Mr. Lal Singh, welcome back to the
thank you for inviting me. Good morning to my colleagues on the panel. And good day to all the listeners of the Bob Show. I wish everybody well.
Yes, absolutely. Now, gentlemen, we have assembled you here because of a very, I don't think I've ever seen such a riot act in the history of Grenadian politics. Have you ever witnessed such an issue spill out in the open in the way that it has? Obviously, political parties would always have leadership debates. We saw that in respect of the National Democratic Congress through the various cyclings of leaders that they've had over the years. We saw that during the revolution. Of course, we saw that with the Grenada United Labour Party as well. So in respect of leadership challenges, that's not new. But the way in which Dr. Mitchell approached this, were you surprised by that? And any one of you can start. Well, since no one wants to start, well, Kenny,
I will. I thought the other two gentlemen would start. You know, politics is can be a very nice thing, but it can be a very hostile thing.
Yes.
And there's an old saying, if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. We have seen, like you just said, in many political parties, sometimes you have smooth transition, and sometimes you have very hostile behavior. I've always admired the British. When a prime minister loses election in England, immediately tenders his resignation and awaits the election of a new leader. And then he departs. I've always admired the stance in the UK. But in the Caribbean, it's not like that. It is always, most of the times, a very hostile way of doing things because two things. They never want to give up power. And on the other hand, sometimes they want to retain power through someone else. So there's always a tendency to handpick the successor so that they are seen and they do not lose their power base and they do not lose their authority. So we see these things happening in the Caribbean.
Yes,
Well,
Mr. Clement, go ahead. Yes.
If I may, according to your prelude there, I do not think that probably Dr. Mitchell putting down the Riot Act on Sunday was as bad as it looks, because I think in Grenada we have had almost bloodbath because of leadership contests before. So this is not new to our politics, and I think every time you have political party ebbs and flows, and in the ebbing and flowing, you always have contention there. But at the same time, I do believe that the stance, I do believe that the time has come maybe for a change of leadership within the new national party. But I do believe that what is playing out now is maybe more of a philosophical difference with Dr. Mitchell and Peter David than one of that politics per se. And these are two gentlemen from two different political persuasion. And I think, like the Americans will say, I'll be darned if I see Dr. Mitchell give up that leadership to Peter David. It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen.
All right. So I guess,
William,
I guess it's my turn.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
You're sort of the middle batsman there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to start by advancing a theory of our politics at this time, and then try to locate what is happening in that framework. I want to argue that 2022 marked a year of transition in Grenadian politics. We saw for the first time somebody who was unknown to the public as such in politics come in, and in 6 months or so time, he's crowned prime minister. 6 months, unprecedented. So something was at work, something. And that transition, in my view, has a couple of elements. The June 22 situation left us with two things in the main: symbolism of a character, that's the leader of the NDC, and the displacement of the age factor, which is key. Of course, the leader of the NDC was rather youthful himself. So there's an age dimension, and there is the symbolism of the persona that is appealing to the younger generations of Grenadians. It's not the old-fashioned charisma. It is something else. I've argued it before. It has to do with association. People are freely choosing to associate, not on the basis of loyalty and so on. It's their own judgment. And so they're in that pairing relationship now. So we have that symbolism and that age thing in play. And we're looking for something else. We're looking for substance to add to that. And up to this point, that substance has not yet appeared. In the meantime, we find ourselves with some people having exited the political stage, and then we have the politics of remnancy. That is where that NNP thing now with Keith and Peter falls. Essentially, the thing has moved, has shifted. The territory is no longer in their favor, in my view. But there's a politics of remnancy. They are still trying to struggle for a place, for relevance, even when so much of the present environment and so on is saying, listen, guys, we're no longer interested in either of you. So I think that is the case. So the issue of Keith's dramatic conduct and so on, how he displayed himself, I think listen, it's not a far cry from how Keith has behaved over many, many years. It's not a far cry. On this occasion, I think he finds it necessary to battle against someone whom he had given lodging. So remember, when Pedro joined the NNP in 2014, and he said infamously, "Count me in." What happened there is that he went in, he strengthened Keith. So he enabled Keith to get the crown again. But at the same time, Keith got him very, very cheaply. And he did not realize that. Massive mistake on his part. Keith got him very cheaply. So now the question of succession in the NNP is something that as far as Keith is concerned, that he must determine, behaving as the political owner of the NNP for decades. And I don't know how many of us could deny him that, if not a right, a privilege, in considering himself a political leader, the owner of the NNP. And if you're the owner of the NNP, my God, you're going to have some say in what happens in the future of that organization. I heard Peter's interview with you a week or two ago, and I'm sure we'll come to that. But yes, that's my opening salvo.
That is your opening salvo. But I want to pick up on a few things that you mentioned. I'm going to bring back the rest of the panel here. Mr. Joseph, you articulated that what we are seeing here is sort of the vestiges of, shall we say, a dying, I don't want to use the word dying, or a retrograde version of Grenadian politics. Let's use that. A vintage version of Grenadian politics. I want to pick up on that with both Mr. Clement and Mr. Lal Singh. Is the NNP experiencing an identity crisis that's undergirded by those generational issues that Mr. Joseph just spoke about them, Mr. Lal Singh? And then I'll get to you, Mr. Clement.
I don't think it's an identity problem. It's a selfish problem. The present leader does not want to give up leadership. He wants to continue to lead. He pretends that he will pass it on, but he has no interest in passing it on right now. He strongly believes that NDC is still a one-term government. And if they are one-term government, then he very well can be the saving grace down the road. You notice there was a general council, and there was no date set for convention.
No date, I noticed that too. That, to me, that was the biggest story there.
So that tells you there is no interest. There is no interest whatsoever in handing over the battle. But we have to also look at the background of the present leader. How did he become leader of the NNP? It was a long episode. NNP came in with 14 members, elected members. He did everything possible to get rid of what he considers threat to him, assuming the leadership of the NNP. I was the first to leave, followed by Finley St. Louis. And then there was a mass defection, George Brizan, Francis Alexis, and Tillman Thomas. Once that happened, then the present leader of the NNP then found himself close in the driver's seat because there was nobody to battle with him. and he knew he could have handled Mr. Blaze. So when you see talking about hijacking, it is in his blood. It is something he did. So he organized to make sure he get the leadership when the was 1989 when the NNP had its convention. Mr. Blaze was the leader. He organized from constituency to constituency to make sure he had a majority. As a matter of fact, someone told me, Mr. Blaze asked him, well, what position are you running for in the convention? Because he was the general secretary. And he said to Mr. Blaze, only now you're asking me that? He said, whatever the people want, they will decide. And the vote came, and he became the leader of the NNP in 1989. It was a well-orchestrated hijacking plan. So when you see the man is talking about hijacking the party at this time, you know what he's talking about. It is not the first time. So he believes that other people will do the same thing that he did. And rest assured, all the names that are coming up, he still believes that he is the best person to lead Grenada at this time. And he further believes that if an election is called, he can win. So it's very much in him. He doesn't even think about anybody else right now but himself.
Mr. Clement, of course, you have been not necessarily a fly on the wall, but you have been in the crucibles of the party. Dr. Mitchell said in that speech that, he wants somebody to come from the bowels of the party, a child of the NNP, shall we say. And you are, in essence, a child of the new national party. Or perhaps as what he said, he wants you to come home. So right now you're probably a prodigal son. But
because of that utterance, a child. Yes, I am a child of the new national party. And I think, Brother Larsing, truth is not all total truth. There are some things that was left out. I would not brand it as hijacking of the party. No. Because I come from Carriacou. I grew up in Mr. Blaze's yard. As a child, I was there with Mr. Blaze. When he became Prime Minister, I was there. And, maybe this was the indoctrination of politics into me. Because my foster parents, Daddy Edmund was Mr. Blaze's driver, as a youth, I saw the demise of Mr. Blaze between the late 80s up to 1989. And was the ascension of Dr. Mitchell into the Prime Minister role, was it part and parcel all of his making? Kenny Larsing is seeming to forget the Americans were also involved. When I myself look at Mr. Blaze, and the guy was just almost non-functional. And the Americans perhaps stepped in because somebody would have taken that leadership role. And I believe that they were the ones who spurred Dr. Mitchell on to take over that leadership because Mr. Blaze was becoming incapacitated. He did not last very long after that. And so when one talking about hijacking the party, maybe the way it was done probably, and some of the truth were left out. But if you ask people within the new National Party organization at that time, I think the Americans also played a leading role in elevating Dr. Mitchell to that position. And so, because you have to remember, it was still the days when Republicans were there. The NNP party, as it was in 1984, was probably formed and coalesced because of the not the Democratic, but the Republican Party in the United States, Ronald Reagan and all those. And they did not want to see Eric Matthew-Gary go back into the government of Grenada. And so they were part and parcel. of the development of Dr. Mitchell, whether he was part of them or whether he was whatever he was, but they are the ones who facilitated that transition into the leadership of the NNP by Dr. Mitchell.
Yeah. William, go ahead and give Kenya.
Yeah, I think there is merit in both views. I think the term hijacking is to be understood in its cultural context. You know, when you tell the man he will not be contested, and before he catches his seat, you know, you unseat him and so on, and because things have been prearranged. Set aside the fine print, which, Clement, I agree with you. Those forces were present with those motives and so on. But I think the label still stands from a cultural point of view. Now, so I go now to Kenny's perspective, which is a fair perspective of the thing also. So the way I understood it, remember, just before the elections of 22, Keith had brought on the stage the young lady now living in London, thereabout. Yes? And the word then was that he was going to be handing over to her, Dr. Lambert's wife. What's her name again?
Akima Paul Lambert. Lady Paul, as some call her.
She addressed the party convention, I think, of that year, if not General Council. And so everything seemed to be shaping in that direction. What was the game plan? Of course, Mitchell never saw himself losing. So he would win in 22. He would serve perhaps half of the term, then contrive a way to hand over to Akima midterm, and he takes another seat, not a back seat. He takes another seat, understand it? Because as long as Keith, there's a breath of life in Keith, he's going to sit. He's going to sit in that political space, not necessarily a particular political office. So the thing got derailed for him with the defeat. And so when he got defeated in 22, the entire game plan was scuttled. Akima clearly had no belly to come and struggle, so she pulled out. In the meantime, Keith is angry, and he's growing angrier. Why? Because he never saw himself being pushed out from the prime ministership of Grenada, being denied that label by anybody. So he had crowned himself, which is a cultural problem for him, but he had crowned himself. And so as far as he was concerned, he had to find a way to regain this thing, to recapture the prime ministership. All right? So there you have it. He's been knocked down in 22 elections. The thing has shifted. He's in denial. He say he going, and then he ain't going, and then he half going, and so on. And then Peter David puts his name up. What is happening here? I'm going to shut up in a second.
Yes.
From the time he put his name up in a context where it was clear to everybody, those inside the party and those of us as onlookers outside the party, from the time that Keith began putting signals that he was not going, if you put your name up, you are signaling your intention to contest against him. So let's understand the thread. Contest leads to conflict, leads to division, leads to defeat. So what is facing the NNP really is precisely that. A contest at the convention with Pedro or whoever else, primarily Peter. That contest is going to express itself in terms of conflict within the party, is going to be labeled culturally as division, and then when you are divided, you can't prevail in the elections. That is the same thing that afflicted the NDC in 2012. And when it moved to expel, it had to expel the guys. So that's why I say it's remnancy politics now, because Keith essentially, his political life in terms of the prime ministership officially is over. I don't see Grenadians electing him back to serving anything. He's reading something, there is slippage on the NDC side, and he's telling himself that he's going to save it. He's not telling himself, let me build something. Let me enable a group of younger people whom he claims he has been training for some time to come forward in the context of a rebranded NNP to face the force of Deacon's NDC. And that is where the thing is at. Unless you're prepared to do that, you're wasting your time.
Mr. Clement, I'll bring you back here as well because I see you want to jump in. Go ahead.
Yes, I beg to differ because after the election in 2022, I remember telling the folks that you never count people out in the politics. And Mr. Joseph will remember that Compton in St. Lucia died in office at the age of 84. I was in Castries when the St. Lucian people told him, Ale, go. And like Bill Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. And at the end of the day, if those that are in office now do not take care of the Grenadian people and they start slipping, you see people's bread and butter on the table and everyday politics that are very local, that could be a priority for this governing party now. And so that probably might give Dr. Mitchell some hope in terms of bringing back the NNP back into, whether it is himself or whether it is somebody else, but that is what is there now. And you never count people out in politics. I never did. I never thought in my lifetime I would have seen Compton come back at the age of 70, almost 80, 81, and he died in office because of the situation on the ground. And so that is what we have to look at, because again, all politics is immediate, all politics is local. I would not count people out. I mean, every political party ebbs and flows. It ebbs and flows. And at one time, NNP in 2013, 2018, they were saying that NDC was a dead party. And look today, you can't count people out.
Yeah. And William, is that, and I'm going to bring back Mr. Lalsing here, but is that something that perhaps Dr. Mitchell is seeing on the ground in respect of the ground shifting and sort of popularity slippages with the current administration that he's saying? Of course, he has been around a long time, so he would know how to read the political tea leaves. That perhaps this might be his opportunity for his one for the road.
No, you see, I think that I hear my brother Clement, but the thing is is always very dynamic. Mm-hmm. Some of it is sometimes unpredictable, but we can see with certainty that generally one of the characteristics of politics is that it is dynamic. Okay, so on the other side of that thing, Keith's expectations and dreams and hopes, you have a reality that has established the NDC. That's why I began where I began. Something came forward in our country that enabled the installation / election of Deacon Mitchell representing the NDC. That thing is at work. It's at work. The age advantage, the symbolism. And I said the substance, we're looking for it still. So if you see slippage on the part of the regime, it has to do with substance. Some of the programs are biting, and then you struggle to find other things, So all of us are seeing essentially the same things that there is, and people will tell you that there is slippage on the part of but because there is slippage does not necessarily mean that you are the one to fix it. We will need someone to fix it, but why do you think and say it is you? Why can't you take a view that says there is slippage Well, let us build a front on the NNP side with younger leaders of some pedigree who could stand and countervail against against Deacon Mitchell and so on. Why don't you do that? You've had more than 2 years now to do that, you know. So you've wasted a lot of time. And in the meantime now, the setup is one of impending conflict and division inside the NNP. That dynamic, whether there is slippage on the NDC side or not, or the extent of that, the fact that internally in the NNP there are going to be severe problems. Once there's a contest at that convention for the leadership, there you have it. There you have it.
Yeah, let me bring in Mr. Lausing here. Mr. Lausing, I want you to pick up on what both gentlemen have been saying, but I want you to begin by reflecting on this idea that it seems as though, as Mr. Joseph is saying, because of Peter's entry into the party, that we might be seeing what occurred in the NDC occur in the New National Party on account of Peter's presence. Is that an idea that you subscribe to?
Maybe, but I just want to just say before I went on, we have to understand that the New National Party is a very powerful organization in Grenada. And please don't dismiss the NNP as a fly-by-night party. Dr. Mitchell also knows that he has a powerful organization in terms of numbers. And he still has in the back of his head that he can lead. Why? Because life is a habit. If you do something for many, many years, it stays with you. So leadership has stayed with the present leader. He knows nothing else but leadership. From 1984 to today, all he has played is leadership. To give up leadership now is a very difficult thing for him. And so he will fight to the last to retain leadership because he sees as belonging to him. And so the fight that is taking place for leadership within the NNP will not go away easily. It will not go away easily. But there is a statement. There is a statement made by the present Prime Minister. He must have said it in Parliament.
You mean give it to
Pedro? Give it to Pedro.
Yes.
Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, in his utterances, give it to Pedro. Now that statement has annoyed the leader more than anything else. And that statement has confused him. So much so that he intends to fight for it and to hold it and to keep it. So you would have that scenario going on because he feels from the opposition level, you want Pedro, I will make sure that it does not happen. Now, that statement by our Prime Minister, that's political psychology. You know, political psychology is you say something for the opponent to read it the wrong way. And that has really stirred the leader, so much so that he put him in a greater fighting mood. But to go on to Pedro enter into the New National Party, I was there in 2014. It's almost to the October 2014. And Dr. Mitchell said to me, he asked me the question, are you interested in full-time politics? Do you want to run for a seat? And I said to him, no, I think I've had my time. I have no intention of running in any parliamentary election again. He then said to me, if you are not interested, Peter David has expressed interest in continuing. And I believe that Peter is an excellent person to come in and to possibly become leader of the NNP. And I said to him, well, you know, the party is bigger than me. Grenada is bigger than me. And since I have no direct interest, I am prepared to tender my resignation and exit the politics. And I did so in, I think it was November of 2014. I resigned from the ministry and from the Senate and made way for Peter and Chester Humphrey, based on the discussion I had with the leader. Because I always believe that politics is a transient thing. You're in and you're out. When time comes to go, you have to go. And this was his wish. And I cooperated with him and I left. I left in a nice way. So, you know, when you see all this fighting going on now, you ask yourself, what is statements very truthful? Is that really what you wanted to happen? Of course, what is happening now is not good for the party. It is not good for the politics. It is not good for Grenada or the Caribbean.
Yes, let me bring back Mr. Clement here. Mr. Clement, you want
You
to
know,
add a bit?
over the years, I've had a view to a kill. I was in NNP when it was announced that Peter David would be coming in and join the New National Party. I was in executive, and they had announced that they were having a big fanfare for him in Paraclete, and I was one who stood and opposed the fanfare. And I remember me stating that while I welcome Peter joining the party, I did not see the need for the fanfare, because I mentioned then that there are those of us who are sitting in this executive who have given blood, sweat, and tears for the New National Party, and we were never celebrated. And I remember in contention with Dr. Mitchell over Peter in the New National Party, and he beat his chest for me. Well, he accustomed beating his chest. If I say he's running, he's running. And we had contention over Peter David. And I do not think Dr. Mitchell's intention never at all was for Peter to rise to leadership of the New National Party, again, because of philosophical differences. If you understand the bowels of the NNP, that is like right and left in terms of philosophical thinking, and this would not happen. And maybe it is the same reason why he asked Toby, will you guys sit back there and let Peter take over the New National Party? So I know since when the man came in, that leadership intention, whether he had it or not, Dr. Mitchell would not. And a lot of the members of the New National Party that I know that are still inside there, that would be a hard pill to swallow, because I told Dr. Mitchell then that all my time in the NNP, you were taught not to trust Peter and Chester and all of the likes. And now you want to shove him down Toby's throat. I would not swallow that pill, and I said it. And I know for me, I was not welcome in certain circles, because I would have stood there and not let that happen. And today now, Dr. Mitchell is taking the stand that come hell or high water, Peter would not be in the leadership position of the New National Party. But if you have to move forward in the leadership of the New National Party, whether Peter win the convention or not, that whatever is going on there now would tear the New National Party apart. Because regardless of what, Peter will have his supporters within the New National Party. Dr. Mitchell would have the supporters within the New National Party. And if you have a transition, and Mr. Joseph was right, you cannot win an election if you have division amongst your forces. This is why we always say all hands on deck and everybody put their shoulders to the wheel. But when you have that kind of contention, and it's as if I was seeing that coming. The philosophy of Dr. Mitchell and Peter David is two different philosophies. They cannot mesh together. I think, in my humble opinion, he brought in Peter and all the host of them, maybe to use them for the purpose of what he wants. But at the time in 2014, he did not really need them. So I had problems with that. And up to today, I still have I'm not a New National Party member right now, so I cannot have problems. I would not have problems with that. But that is what I am seeing confronting the new. Maybe if Peter was not within the New National Party ranks, probably Dr. Mitchell might have left already.
That's an interesting. I want to bring back William here again, and speaking to Dr. Mitchell's rhetoric, and it was very pointed, because the only person who is contesting the leadership of the party is someone who was adopted into the party, right? And that's Peter David. So now you hear all these people with the plausible deniability that, oh no, he's not talking about Peter David. Please, we are not fools. We are not dumb. But let us talk about this, because in my conversation with Mr. David 2 weeks ago, when I raised the question of ideological test, he seemed to suggest that Dr. Mitchell is also pragmatic. You know, he says that Dr. Mitchell has alliances with Cuba. He's the one that reopened diplomatic relations with Cuba. He has alliances with the Communist Party of China, his relationship with the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, while also being, of course, tied to the International Democratic Union, which is this consortium of conservative parties. But let us talk about this whole ideological test that really, and that is what Dr. Mitchell articulated in so many words, William.
So, let me begin by saying that I agree a lot with so much that Brother Clement just advanced, right? The politics in Grenada and elsewhere uploads a whole lot of convenience factors, arrangements. 2014, he wants to get back in. He sees Peter and his people as being able to further demolish the NDC and bring him the thing on a platter. For him, it's always having the power. And invariably, he offers a price. But in 14, he got Peter cheaply. In other words, all he had to do was to rub Peter's head. He got the crown. He became prime minister again. Give Peter a little thing in a ministry and so on, rub his head and so on. Deep down, he has no interest or desire or intention to elevate Peter to the leadership of the NNP, and not only on ideological grounds. You heard him on Sunday. He's talking about the cultural stuff. How do you appreciating the cultural factors, the socio-political issues, not belong to an organization, a political organization, and you want to lead it? Well, that doesn't square off. It doesn't square off. And all this thing about Chavez and Maduro and so on, Keith go there for Alba money. He didn't go there because he has some tolerance for the kind of politics that the fellas are practicing in Venezuela. Keith would go almost any place for money for Grenada. Let me make it clear. I'm not talking about personal money now. I'm talking about money for him to use in the development of Grenada. And that is what has happened. When Peter came, he came with some millions from Alba. It helped the government to find its way in the initial period. But the politics, Keith's politics, is not a politics of gratitude. It's not that. It's a politics of convenience. And so it's playing it out now. This is my party. I build this thing, I own this thing. Right? So I have to have a say in who succeeds me. That's what he's saying. As a matter of fact, this successor thing isn't running right now. So he retracting from, signals that he had sent earlier. And look at it. The anti-Peter signal was sent since he brought Akima into the ball game, or around the marbles. He was signaling that he was going to go to somebody else whom he recognized as belonging to the NNP to succeed him. He was picking his own successor, and it was not Peter. So that was clear since the introduction of Akima Paul. So the point then, and then I shut up, is that if you're Peter and you're reading these things, you've had your personal ambition. You've had your personal ambition to become prime minister. And when Peter was struggling with Tillman back then, his surrogates every morning on the radio station and whereabout, they calling in. And you know what they say? Peter don't want leader. Peter don't want leader. So you didn't want leader of your own party, the NDC. But now you want to be leader of a party that you have no footing in. I mean, this thing is so strange, except that you are in pursuit of a political mission on behalf of a group of remnants of the NGM. That is really what that thing is about. That's what it's about. They are in pursuit of this thing because this is their last hope, they tell themselves, of getting this thing back, state power. Peter is the symbol. The one who the thing with the smiling face. And every time I think about Peter and so on, we went to school together. But I think of him, the car that you see parked by the roadside has a beautiful color. Nice color. But do you know whether the engine is working? Do you know the state of the engine? So let's not fool ourselves. There's nothing innocent. There's nothing democratic about the politics that Peter and his guys want to roll out in this Grenada at this time. In fact, since 2000. And this is their last hooray. So you see, he sat there on Sunday and he faced all of that. He has not done what so many people thought would be the manly thing to do. Pack it up and give it in. Why has he done so? Because the left is not going to cower for anybody. The left is going to say to you, I will fight you. So the fight will come, the contest. The contest will bring with it conflict. The conflict will mushroom into division, and division will mushroom into defeat for the NNP at the next elections.
Mr. Lal Singh, I want to bring you in here. Mr. Joseph has said a lot, and I want you to begin to unpack some of what he's saying here. First of all, he's making the point that Peter is still this ideological leftist, that those are remnants of the NJM, well, and the PRG. Perhaps this might be their last hurrah. But again, at the same time, to the extent that ideological politics is still a major issue in Grenada, I especially for a new generation of Grenadians, I don't think they care much about ideological politics as perhaps the previous generations did. So, Mr. Lal Singh, I want you to unpack some of those elements.
I've gone through my whole period with the left. I was imprisoned. I was banished. I have forgiven all of them. All. When I said earlier on, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, I was talking about Morris. He lived by the sword, he governed by the sword, he lived by the gun, he governed by the gun, and he died by the gun. I feel sorry for all of them. And I believe firmly there is no room for the left anymore. That kind of extreme left, there is no room. The politics in this era are similar on all sides.
I'm going to bring in Mr. Clement on that score. Mr. Clement, you and William seem to share a lot of convergence in respect of your thoughts on this whole ideology idea there.
Sorry.
Like I said, you know, I had a view to a kill, and I think lately I said, and I told him then, I says, when shit hit the fan and sling everywhere, who will be there to watch your back? And I told him then, and I said it then, you brought it in, so you fix it now. And so this is something that will have to be fixed if NNP has to go forward as a united party or to bring any form of change, whether or not whoever is in the leadership there. And it's such a pity, though, that I mean, I am sitting here today outside of party, outside of government, because my fight started with the left that came into the NNP. And many people did not know about it, but I was one that they saw that was standing in the way, because that is the fight that I would fight, you know, to fight against those philosophy. And when they came in, the fight started. And I am happy now that maybe I was looking into the future that Dr. Mitchell would have had to have this fight, and he's having it now. But he that caused it in the first place, like the Americans say, you broke it, you fix it.
Mr. Lal Singh, over to you there. Yeah, we lost you there for a second, so we'll get back to you now, sir. Let me, yes, Mr. Lal Singh, there you are. Mr. Lal Singh, over to you. We lost you for a second, so go ahead and finish your train of thought.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes,
yeah,
go ahead. Yes.
I lost connection a while ago.
Yes, but go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, there is no room for the left in the politics of this new era. You know, you might have dictators, but I think everybody's about doing the same thing, you know. But more importantly, like was said before, if you want to build an organization, you have to make sure that it's united and the team can work together. You can't win an election with fighting each other for no reason. So as long as this fighting is going on in the NNP, they are in trouble. So they need to stop the fighting and get their act together. Because if the present government understand what to do, they can take them off guard. So they can very well be the loser while they are fighting.
And Kenny came and wrapped it up also very nicely about the effect of the vision on the organization's prospects of prevailing at the elections. It really is very, very, it's a simple thing. It's a no-brainer, really. It is a no-brainer. So if you are going to engage Keith in a contest, listen, like Keith or not, recognizing Keith's penchant for intrigues and game playing and all that stuff, whatever, you know, we can assign these things to him. Yeah. At the end of the day, if the fella is known in Grenada as the leader of the NNP, among the Grenadian people, he is far less more so among his supporters in his party. And if you come with a challenge to that, you are going to reap havoc. And I'm not talking about steel cutting steel now. I'm just saying at the hands of the electorate, you're going to be rejected. Why are you in the politics as a serious party? Every political party that's serious has one mission, and that is to form the government of Grenada by elections, of course, ballots. Okay, and how do you win elections? We understand what you need, and the fundamentals: a united party with an appealing leader. And so sometimes we need to look at these Peter credentials for leader when we talk this thing. And that's why I raised the about the color of the car and the engine. The facade as against what is in the main, what's inside there in the body of the thing. And I asked myself, I've known him for a long time, back since GBSS days, what is his leadership offer to Grenada in this period of our history? And I you know, so I fast forward. I've said this before and I say it again. The thing has shifted in Grenadian politics. 2022 was a year of transition, and the transition is a process.
Yes,
all right?
William, William, hold that thought because we have to get to Brother Clement for some closing comments because he has to go. Right. So, Mr. Clement, just wrap up. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. And
very new insights that you did not offer before.
Well, no, I do not say everything that I know. I can't say everything that I know. I should not, you know, and to be with Mr. Joseph and Mr. Kenny Lal Singh and Dr. Bob, you also, I mean, what I say, conversation of high value. And I do believe that just the last point I would make, like Mr. Joseph was saying, anybody that ascend as a leadership of the new National Party in going forward, you must have the blessing of Dr. Mitchell. Otherwise, you're not going anywhere, not in the party or in Grenada. And so I do not understand what sense is there in having that fight, but look to see what the position is. And if the fight has to be made, it should be the fight for the development of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and not a personal fight. So I want again to thank you, Dr. Bob, and thank Mr. Joseph and Mr. Lal Singh for the conversation today and for the brotherhood in that respect. Thank you. Thank you, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. God bless.
Mr. Clement, thank you so much for appearing on this week's edition of the Bub Report. And viewers and listeners, what we're going to do now is to take a quick break and come back for the closing segment of this conversation. Please stand by.
We seek the truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, you have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style, and so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues?
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
Why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
This is a very interesting question.
The Bub Reports with Dr. Kelon Bub. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
And viewers and listeners, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bub Report. We are going to get to some closing comments. But William, as we do get to some closing comments, I want to bring up an issue that former NDC political leader Tillman Thomas raised. Again, you know, we talking about these ideological tests and whether or not you're ideologically pure or not to be to serve as the leader of a party. Mr. Thomas, in an appearance on another platform, he made the point that political parties, if you are going on the idea that you are a democratic institution, should not have those political tests. That anyone, irrespective of the time or the tenure that they have served in a political party, should be entitled to serve as to serve in whatever position, including in the position of political leader. What say you? In fact, he went further to say that Dr. Mitchell runs the NNP as a sort of a mafia organization.
Well, you know, the thing about it is that political organizations enjoy of necessity, more than over and above everything else, a cultural character. It hasn't. It's not about logic and reasoning. It's culture. It's culture, and so that a person could be in a political party and not be a Democrat. You could be in a political party that says it is a Democratic party, but you yourself, you are not a Democrat. So there is something there. We can't be soft about these things. We have to look at people's behavior, especially over a long period of time, to determine where it is that they actually stand. Are they evidencing that they are democratic in their outlook, or are they advancing that they are something else? So, and I would say this lastly, as far as I read it, political parties are not institutions, they're organizations. They're organizations. And people, the members of these organizations do not necessarily have rights in the classical sense. They have privileges, the privileges of membership. And then now the whole dynamics of politics in terms of picking a leader. So I'm going to weave now my final comments at this point. Having said that, you know, so there's this question of new leadership in the NNP. It's an important question, not just for the party, but for Grenada. But you look at it. What is it? It's an opportunity on the road for someone to build a personal brand in the politics. Look carefully. Tillman Thomas, Victor Burke did not build Deacon Mitchell. Did not. So Keith Mitchell should not expect that he should build Dwight or anybody else. All that he can do, in my view, is to sell Dwight or anybody else to his people. But he must give them the space to build their own identity. And I would say that that identity should come in the context of a rebranded NNP, if they were to make sense, because this poor and vulnerable thing must perish, must come to an end. And let them come to the public now with something fresh and buoyant and appealing and modern. So that's my closing point. I thank you so much. And thanks to Kenny and to
Tobias earlier.
Yes.
Well, perhaps, who knows, based on that advice, you know, you might be hired to do some consultancy work for
I need the work. I need the money.
You need the money, huh? All right, Brother William Joseph, thank you so much for appearing on the Bub Report this week, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, this has been another edition of the Bub Report. I am, of course, your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bub, thanking you for joining us for this week's edition of the program. This was a shorter version of the program as it was pre-recorded and I am away, and that's why we are unable to take your questions live. But we will be back next week for a full-throated live episode of the Bub Report. On behalf of the producers, I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bub, thanking you for watching this week's edition of the program. Take care. Bye-bye.